Restorative justice is essentially about bringing those people who've been affected by crime and harm and antisocial behaviour together with, or having the option to be brought together with the person that's caused that harm or committed that crime.
It's an opportunity for the person who caused the harm and the person who's been harmed to have a dialogue, to have a conversation, and in that respect get any answers that you need, maybe an apology if that's what you're looking for. Really get your needs met. I think that's the point from a victim's point of view, is about getting your needs met, because your needs have been left out of this process.
It empowers the victim and gives the victim some control over the outcome, but it also provides an opportunity for offenders to engage in a way that they wouldn't have done in the past, which in turn enhances our chances of reducing reoffending in the future, which really has to be in the interest of everybody.
One of the biggest questions that comes up time and time again for victims is, why me? It's the biggest question, and that's left unanswered. Why me? Why did this happen to me? So to be able to look the person who caused you harm in the face and ask that question can be very powerful.
Almost inevitably, when something happens to a person, when they are a victim of a crime, they are not making the decisions about what's happened. They are having decisions made for them. Somebody decides they're going to break into their house. This gives them the power. This allows them to make decisions. And one of the most fundamental things for victims is to be re-empowered.
Gives you back your personal power in whichever way, whatever that might mean for you. And dignity, in my case. You know, just I felt that I was able to say, you did this. Yes, you did this to me. You chose to do this to me, but you didn't know who I was. So I need to explain to you who I am as a person. And actually what happened in that conversation was that he started to see me as more than, if you like, an object. My identity is not just a victim. My identity is so much more than that. And that was very powerful for both of us, I think.
There's two categories, and that's direct communication and indirect communication. Direct communication is individuals will sit down in the same room and talk face to face about what's happened and the impact and what's occurred. Indirect can be any number of a range of options. So that may be an exchange of letters, it may be exchange of questions and information via the practitioner facilitator of the process, it may be via a third party if they don't feel sufficiently safe or comfortable to have that dialogue themselves. So all options are open to do that.
It's really important that when officers and staff engage with victims, that we're able to give them all the information they need to make a better decision as to what outcome they want to get.
The individuals that deliver the service and colleagues in the various agencies will talk to all the potential participants. They'll prepare them thoroughly for the meeting or whatever process they wish.
I knew where the perpetrator was going to be sitting. I knew which was my chair. I knew the whole structure of that meeting, how it was going to take place. I didn't know the content, but I knew the structure of it. And that was really important, actually, because I didn't have to worry about any of that.
People need to feel safe. This is about allowing victims to have a voice, allowing victims to move on. The service here is relatively unique insofar as the Crime Commission in Hampshire has been really innovative and bold in allowing all victims of all crime to come to the service. From what you want, some people may describe as the most serious homicides, through sex offences, through to burglaries, robberies. We will take all cases and review those unless the offender perpetrator is a young person, in which case we work in partnership with the Youth Offending Service and they take responsibility for the young people. You can use it pretty much immediately, so within days of an incident occurring, right the way up to years and years later. I think the longest situation I can recall is about 40 years after the particular crime. That's in terms of when you can use it. In terms of how long does it takes as long as the victim needs, as long as the participants need. So if we get a phone call that's 2 years after an incident and it takes 6 months of preparation, then we will take 6 months to prepare all the participants for that process. The the critical thing in all of this is ask. Don't be embarrassed to ask a victim, what is it that you would like to happen? Because until you ask that question, then we're hardly ever going to be able to answer the needs that they may have in relation to the situation.
Language can be very, very damaging. I was told along the line, you're too raw, you're too vulnerable, by people that had no idea or clue about who I was or whether I was vulnerable or raw. And that made me really upset and really angry and very, again, disempowered. So be very cautious about the language that you use, I think, and work on it. Work on that. And if you have to, work alongside the victim with that.
For me, it's very much about officers and staff being given all the information, understanding what the victim's rights are, understanding what restorative justice is, and then giving them that information at a very early stage so that the victim can make the best decision for themselves.
What I came up against were professionals who were judgmental, made assumptions and presumed things, and also projected their own fear, quite frankly, onto me and to the case. And that made me very angry, actually. I would just get told no, and then I would say, well, could you explain to me why? Because I think this is really valid. And they wouldn't be able to come up with any reason why. I think restorative justice in the right circumstance changes lives, and it's something that every victim should have the opportunity to do if that's the choice that they want to make.
The Home Office latest statistics will tell you it reduces reoffending on average by 27%. Frequently it's significantly more than that. Perpetrators, offenders will tell you they don't know who the individual is. They don't see victims as individuals, so as soon as you hear about the harm they've caused, they change their behaviour.
Restorative justice is important because it gives the victim a voice that counts, and it makes them feel that they are at the heart of the process and not just part of the process.
Whilst I was investigating a series of residential burglaries in Hampshire, we came across a suspect, and we arrested and interviewed him. This offender had committed a whole series of burglaries. There was a trail of devastation that he'd left and quite a great deal of traumatised victims. So I approached one of his victims who I knew was particularly affected by it and explained the process to her. The interaction between the victim and the offender was really interesting, a real eye-opener. It started with the victim asking him questions. She was extremely upset about what had happened, and she was blunt about that. She was initially quite angry with him. Why did you break into my house? Why me? How dare you go through my jewellery? How dare you steal my father's watch? Really, really big things for her that she had been bottling up and wanting to ask him. And it was quite interesting to see the victim putting the offender to the test and really challenging him on why he'd done this and what his motivation was. He told her how sorry he was. He understood that she was financially out of pocket, and he offered, when he came out of prison, to repay her. Initially the victim agreed and thanked him, which was great to see, but later on during the meeting, after they'd gained a real rapport together and a real understanding of each other's situation, the victim actually said, I don't want your money, I want you to come out of prison with a chance, I want you to not owe money to anyone, not be in debt with anybody, and I want you to come out into society and have half a chance of making it this time. So from her initial anger towards him and her upset, she then gained a good understanding of his situation, his harsh upbringing, his drug habit, his lack of parental guidance, and showed a willingness to help him, which was just amazing to see. I got a real sense that the victim had had her unanswered questions answered effectively. It helped repair a lot of harm, I think, just there and then within that meeting. She had been hugely reassured when the offender told her it was spontaneous, it was opportunistic, I didn't target you, I didn't watch you or your family, I was desperate, I broke into the first house I saw. That really helped her and helped her, I think, go on and move on with her life from there. The offender was released from prison 3 months ago, and on his release I provided the victim with an update as to where he's living, the fact he has come out early because of good behaviour and he's been working hard in prison. The victim was really grateful for the update, really grateful to be kept in the loop. The offender for the first time said he genuinely thinks he has a chance of rehabilitating. He has proved that. He's proved that the scheme works. He's been through the process, he's come out and he's not offended. So for me, I think on the offender side of things, it's worked well. And the victim has really had some harm repaired that she thought was probably unrepairable before. So it's brilliant to see it's worked for both parties.